Hello and welcome everyone to today's Academy session on Parks That Work for Teenage Girls. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just let everyone, we'll give a few minutes for a few more people to join. But just a heads up that we're recording the session and afterwards it will be live on our resource hub. Today we have four people who are here from the team and also who's going to be presenting. So we have Paul Todd, who is the Green Flag Award Manager. We also have Michelle Wald, who's the Learning and Development Manager from the Green Flag Award. And then we have Abigail Gaines, who will be presenting today on this topic. And yeah, so I'll give maybe another minute before we start. But yeah, thank you for joining us, even in the very warm weather, and hopefully people are able to concentrate on this really interesting and important topic. I've just seen someone isn't able to hear us. Are other people able to hear us? Okay, great. Maybe if whoever can't hear us, I'd recommend maybe you could always leave and rejoin the meeting. Also, maybe try out some headphones. Those are my top tip. Sorry, I can't be more helpful from afar. Nice. I think I'm going to go ahead and start. So as I said, again, welcome everyone to today, Parks That Work for Teenage Girls. We're recording the session and we have lovely Abigail Gaines, who is the lead for Make Space York, joining us, who is going to be presenting most of the session. But before we start, I'm going to hand over to the manager of the Green Flag Award, Paul Todd, who's going to speak a bit about the work that we do with Make Space York and work that we do with Women and Girls Project. So Paul, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Olivia, and welcome everybody to this webinar, part of our new Green Flag Award Academy, which very much, is going to be led as we move forward about what we can do to support you. So feeding back to Olivia on topics you would like to hear, webinars or conferences on, please let us know. But really excited to have Abigail here today, because this has been, over the last few years, a really important area of work for the Green Flag Award programme. So following on from the research that was done by Anna Barker at Leeds University, identifying that women and girls have less access to green space than they should, and less access than men and boys. So really important that we look to address this issue, and we were delighted to form part of a consortium, the Safer Parks Consortium, that worked on developing the guidance on how to make parks safer for women and girls. And of course, an essential partner within that piece of work was Make Space for Girls, who have worked closely. So that guidance is available on the resource hub on the Green Flag Award website. So would recommend that everybody, if they haven't already, do download that and read that guidance. Lots and lots of really top tips on how to engage with women and girls, and of course make our parks safer and more accessible for them. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to hand over to Abigail, because I know the work that she's been doing is exceptional, and I'm really looking forward to hearing and learning from her experience. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abigail Gaines, and the presentation is on Make Space York, and I will reference actually Anna Barker's Safer Parks work in a little bit, but this is about some practical approaches to inclusive engagement and design. So what I'm going to try and cover in the time we've got is the issue. What is the issue with teenage girls and parks? But then I'm going to use Rowntree Park, the park that I'm linked to, as a case study of things we've done to try and change things in the park to make the park more welcoming for teenage girls. And really, I hope some of this is a practical example of things that potentially you could implement, or there might be things that you're already doing that you could like grow, and hopefully it's of use. Obviously, I can't cover absolutely everything in the time we've got, but it'll be a quick guide through, and there should be some time for some questions at the end. So the key thing for me is when we talk about focusing on teenage girls, it's not about creating parks or spaces in parks only for girls. It's about recognizing that their experiences reveal where public space is falling short. And obviously the term park, you know, it's quite wide. So we're talking about everything from larger parks to small play areas, pocket parks, recreation grounds, neighborhood parks, larger green spaces, because similar factors affect how teenage girls experience them. So the bigger issue, girls' use of parks drops compared to boys as they enter their teenage years. In a time that they should be gaining independence, their freedom is starting to be limited, and many girls retreat to what we call the private sphere, be it bedrooms or indoor spaces. And at the same time, there's lots of research that actually show that boys' worlds actually expand and they're going further and gaining more independence. So the biggest question is, why does it matter that girls' use of parks drops? Obviously, I'm probably talking to many people linked to parks and they know the benefits of your parks, but access to good quality green spaces supports physical health, mental well-being, social connection, and a sense of belonging. And for teenagers, parks are that third place. It's a place beyond home and school. It's a place where they can find their freedom, independence, basically forming who they are. It's a chance to meet their friends, to move, to rest, to talk, and actually feel part of a community without the pressure of actually spending money, because parks are a free space that should be available to all. So the issue with teenage girls using parks less here in the UK is actually a bit of a public health issue if we think about it, because only 1 in 5 girls aged 13 to 15 meet recommended daily activity levels. And teenage girls are twice as likely than boys to experience mental health issues such as mood disorders, including anxiety and depression. And as we know, parks can have huge benefits on physical and mental health. Therefore, overcoming the barriers that prevent girls from using them are quite important. So there's been quite a lot of research, well, not a lot, there's the beginning of some research that has started to happen here in the UK over the last few years. And back in July 2022, Yorkshire Sport Foundation and Women in Sport were looking at what stopped girls doing sport really in parks, but actually the study became a bit wider. And what they found is 49% of girls aged 13 to 15 felt unsafe exercising in their local park compared to 26% of boys. 59% felt unwelcome because the spaces in parks were dominated by boys, and 68% felt there was nothing for them to do. So why are girls using parks less? Now, it's not a simple answer. There are many, many factors that combine here, but I've just highlighted some of the key ones. And it can be argued that teenage girls, potentially unintentionally, have been designed out of parks. Many don't feel welcome in the parks, and welcome can include feeling safe. And there are wider societal issues that are affecting their use of parks. Now, people involved in parks might not be able to solve every single one of these issues, but we can start to make a difference through practical changes that we can do to make the parks feel more welcoming for teenage girls. So what it comes up as is the design and facilities currently in parks don't often meet their needs. Teenage facilities can often be more sports and skills based and not play. And there have been existing assumptions on what teenage provision should be. And it's not because girls don't want to go to the parks, it's just they currently don't feel welcome. Just give you a quick example here.
I like parks, but I also feel like I shouldn't be there because I'm not a small child and I don't skate or play basketball. So I feel like because I don't have a reason to be there, therefore I shouldn't be there.
So that's from one of my local girls in York a few years back with her views. So as Paul Todd from Green Flag Keep Britain Tidy just mentioned, is there has been some research, and Make Space for Girls are a charity that's set up in 2021, and their aim is to raise awareness that parks might not be designed with girls in mind. And I actually came across them back in 2021, and at the same time when I heard about this concept and some research, that's when I started doing my work, and I've always communicated with them since, because their aim is to try and influence anyone, councils, planners, architects, anyone linked to parks, community groups, to look at their area and try and make a difference. So in 2023, they did Park Watch report where they had observations happening across the country. And what they found is that the facilities for teenagers in the UK tended to be skate parks, multi-use games areas, bike tracks or pump tracks, basketball courts, and 50 football pitches. And approximately 90% of the users ended up being boys and men. Now, the thing is, these facilities aren't gendered themselves, but currently the patterns of use are. So it's not saying that these are bad provision. They're great. You know, it's great to get for the users who do use them. But if we've got many users who don't use them, then we need to look at how we spend money, and we need to look at the spaces that exist, and we need to just make sure that we are providing for as many as possible, perhaps not just specific groups. And these teenage provisions that happen tends to be sports facilities and not play. So what I would recommend to anyone who's got anything linked to parks and public spaces is look at what you've currently got. If you have teenage spaces, look at who is and who isn't using them. And if you notice an issue, think about what could be done to encourage more missing groups to use the spaces you currently have, or what else could be done to encourage missing groups, such as teenage girls, to use the park in general? So I've mentioned teenage play, and that's something I'm going to focus on a little bit. It is different, but just important to that of younger children. Sometimes loud teenagers in groups can be seen by people as a problem, but basically teenagers being loud, getting together, socializing is basically how you gain your independence. It's how you become who you are. And spending time in parks playing benefits your physical and mental health, helps you develop your confidence, independence, resilience. And parks, as I've mentioned, are that important free resource in a world that's increasingly paid to play. There are some great places for teenagers to go. Like in York, we have an amazing climbing wall, which is brilliant, loads go, but only if you can afford it. And that's the important thing, is there's lots of places you can go to if you've got money, whereas parks are somewhere that should encourage as many people to come together, to play, to exercise, to be active, and to feel part of a community. So focusing on teenage play, as I'll come to, I've been engaging with girls in my park since 2021, and this was a girl's view last year. She is 13, and I think it's quite a telling one. You get side-eyed by parents in the play park. They think you're too old to be there, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. So in our park, like many parks, we have a railed play area, which has got equipment for smaller children, but there are also swings and a zip line, so potentially older children could go in there. But what you get from the girls is they don't feel comfortable in there. If they're on a swing and a 5-year-old comes up, they feel like they've got to get off. They also feel like the parents are judging them because they're loud. So they feel like they can't play. So imagine when you're 11, 12, 13, you are still a child, but ultimately you start to feel like you're not. You can't play anymore. So similarly, another 13-year-old, I like swings, but the play park is for little kids. I still go there, but only when it's quiet. So moving on from play to safety. Safety is more than physical hazards or the absence of threat. It's about that feeling, about feeling welcome. So, as Paul mentioned, there was some great research and guidance that came out of the Safer Parks Consortium linked to West Yorkshire, involving Green Flag, Keep Britain Tidy, Make Space for Girls, and led by sort of Anna Barker. And they did some research in West Yorkshire, and they found that 89% of park professionals believed parks were safe for women and girls, whereas only 22% of teenage girls agreed. So it shows kind of a shocking difference in perceptions. And it also showed, we've also got evidence from the State of Girls' Rights report from Plan UK that 93% of girls and young women do not feel safe in public spaces. So just very simply, most of you here will have seen the Safer Park guidance, and if you haven't, go on to the Green Flag Resources Hub and download it and definitely have a read, because it's so important, not just for parks professionals, but for anyone linked to parks. And it just points out some key Safer Park principles, thinking about things like access and location, visibility and openness, signage, having an active park, eyes on the park, lighting where relevant, belonging, familiarity, how a place is maintained. And all these very simple principles to follow can help parks related people sort of make improvements to their park that can make a huge difference, not just to teenage girls and women, but to many groups. So why does it matter that teenage girls aren't using parks? Currently, it's not fair. It's a health issue. And ultimately, you could argue potentially it's discrimination. But what are we telling girls about their right to take up public space if they don't feel welcome in parks? So here in the UK, we have the Public Sector Equality Duty from the Equality Act 2010. And that's public bodies must consider how their decisions affect people with protected characteristics, including sex. And if teenage girls are not using parks in equal numbers, it raises questions about indirect barriers in equality of opportunity. We've also got to be aware that inequality can be embedded into policy, because often local plans and green space standards prioritise pitch provision and formal sports infrastructure. And if you've got unequal patterns of use by gender, it reinforces the disparities. And addressing these imbalances is not about blame. It's about good practice. It's about reflecting on policies that councils may have and looking at how we can improve them to make sure more people are using parks and public spaces. So just to recap that sort of introduction, it's not about creating spaces only for girls, but it's about recognising where public space is falling short. And it's recognising that teenage girls' needs, experiences and voices are rarely centred in decision-making about parks. But we're all at different starting points. So the biggest question is there an issue in your park? There might be some examples of good practice. So, bottle that, share that, build on it. It is not the same in every single park across the UK. So we're all at different starting points. And the key thing to remember is when parks work better for teenage girls, they tend to work better for many others too. So I've just put up there, as a picture of some guidance that I've put together. Again, it's sort of what I'm talking about, but in a lot more detail. And it is practical ways that anyone linked to parks can make parks welcome for teenage girls. So what I would say is it's all about a cross-departmental approach. It's about anyone linked to parks and green space, potentially planning, transport, active travel, public health, community development, housing, plus working with community groups, local youth organisations and schools. And working together is when the best sort of changes will happen. So now I'm really going to just talk about my own example, Make Space York, as a case study and hopefully is of use to people. So this is Rowntree Park in York. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's a massive park. It's 24 acres. It's a green flag park. But if you can see the picture, the photo with the housing, you can actually see there's a lot of terraced houses with no gardens in the area. And so the park is like this green oasis in the middle. So it's a very important space for many people. But we are also a park that has its issues. We flood. We are near the river, as you can see there, and actually the park's a basin. So that is going to become relevant a bit later. So when I say our park, I am not the park. So the council manage the park, but we have a very strong Friends of Park group, which is the Friends of Rowntree Park. And I got involved with that a few years ago and actually now lead the Friends of Rowntree Park. So we're the community link. We liaise with the council, but we also liaise with the community and stakeholders. But we're a bit different from some Friends of Parks groups because we're actually a charity. So since about 2017, we've taken on more responsibility in the park. So we garden and fund certain areas, we fundraise for equipment, we run events and activities. So as many things that we sort of do as a community, but we're always working with the council and trying to support them and they're trying to support us. So Make Space York is a project that emerged from me being linked to Rowntree Park and wanting to focus specifically looking if there was an issue with teenage girls in our park. So I will go over the methodology, the impact and the key learnings. So the first thing, as mentioned, in 2021, I came across the idea that girls' use of parks drops compared to boys. And I started to think, is there an issue in my park? Now, I'm going to be honest, I was linked to a park. My background was secondary school and sixth form leadership, and I had an 11-year-old girl at the time and a younger boy. So it kind of like all these things sort of merged together and thought, is there an issue? So what I started doing is compiling the research that was out there and sharing it with the community through the park newsletters, the boards, and basically said, I'm going to start some research in the park, and this is why. And then I got volunteers to help me do some local research, so observing the use of spaces. And we also did online surveys and started running some engagement sessions with local girls. So the first survey we did online, these were kind of the results, finding out basically what areas of the park people both used and wanted. So as you can see, the things that came out as the biggest, and this was done with girls age 11 to 18 at the time, 12 to 18, is swings, benches came out as very important, followed by agility and climbing equipment. Nature was key, but we do currently have a skate park and basketball court in the park, and we found that they were used or wanted a lot less by many of the girls that did the survey. But the interesting thing for me is I repeated the same survey 3 months later with boys, and the results were incredibly similar, which I found really quite interesting. Now, that's not to say our skate park and basketball court aren't well used. They are well used. But when you consider how many people could use the park, they're not well used compared to that, if that makes sense. So the thing is, through the project, engagement has been ongoing. I didn't just start in 2021 doing some engagement and stopped. It's constantly been going on for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. So we do a variety of engagement. And what I found with girls is they engage better if it's an activity that interests them. So we've done stuff like making films, reso printing, collective artworks. We've done dance floors where you tell your demand. We've done stuff like zine making, manifesto making, and I'll come to more soon. But trying to find creative ways to get girls to workshops where they're sort of creating something, sharing their views in a non sort of threatening way. And we've had so many girls engaging. It's like over 350 girls have been involved in engaging and feeding back over the last few years. So I suppose the question is, what do teenage girls want? So this is what our teenagers girls want in York. So the key things that have come up over 5 years of engagement are safety. It's feeling welcome, not just the fear of crime. So they want the things in your parks like your clear sight lines, well-maintained spaces, people around, and lighting. But lighting's a whole topic in itself, because lighting is not just lighting. If you get the wrong lighting, it can actually make it even worse in the fear of feeling scared. And the people around one is interesting, because the teenage girls want to know there's people around, but they don't want a park to be too busy, and they want their own spaces, but they want to be able to see people, to be able to get help or ask people if they need it. So it's really like clearly balanced, and they're very clear in what they want. And when we talk about clear sightlines, for us, we have sort of lots of foliage growing up against the skate park and basketball court. So we make sure we keep those sort of low to keep those spaces looking as open as they can. So the other things they want, things like play and social spaces, places to sit and chat, to be active, but not always through competitive sport and skills. Key things have been communal swings where you can sit and chat with your friends, hammocks, climbing structures. A lot of our girls like the idea of climbing up something and sitting up high and just observing. So all these things help them get active, but it's all sort of play too, and it's sort of giving them a reason to stay and not just pass through a park. But what has been important is getting across the idea that girls are not all the same and intersectionality matters. So it's important to ask local teenagers their views and not assume. And trying to find those who don't currently use parks, not just asking those who are there. And the girls really want people to ask in ways that work for them, a variety of ways, because again, one size does not fit all. And what our girls basically came back with saying is they wanted events and activities for teenage girls. So based on the first couple of years of engagement, the project sort of emerged, because when I started the engagement, I didn't actually know where this was going. It was sort of an open book. I didn't know if there'd be an issue, if anything needed to be done. But what came out of the engagement was that the girls wanted more events and activities for their age group. They wanted to co-design a space with equipment that they wanted. And we discussed together the idea of sort of spreading good practice, raising awareness, sharing learning, and starting to influence local policy and actions. So I'll go through each of those just briefly. So aim 1 was free events and activities for older girls, which actually was the easiest one to sort out of all of those first. So in 2023, we came up with the idea of the Make Space Festival. And it's a range of free events and activities for older girls, a chance to try new things, meet new people, feel empowered in the public space. And as you can see by the dates on that poster, I've only just finished this weekend. So I've had 2 weekends of free events in 2 different parks in York. So better than me sort of talking about that, I'll show you a quick little video which summarises the last sort of few years, some of the events.
So make it safe for us wherever you are in the world. Make space for the world. This is our time. Make space for us, make way for us. If you listen, you can be heard. So make it safe for us wherever you are in the world. So make space for us, make way for us. If you listen, you can be heard. So make it safe for us wherever you are in the world. Make space for the world.
As you can see by that, we also got our own theme tune that a local musician actually recorded for us after being inspired by the project. So the Make Space Festival has run every year since 2023. But I suppose the big question is how? So in 2023, based on the feedback, and coming from a background in secondary school teaching, I always believe that if you get the views of girls, you've got to do something with them. You know, you can't just take views and not show change. And getting events into the park was the most simple one to do at first. And so in 2023, I reached out to loads of facilitators across York. So anyone linked to sports, exercise, arts, craft, nature connection, social awareness, anything that could potentially work in a park. And I basically asked them, I told them about the project, and I basically asked, could they volunteer an hour of their time for this? And what we did is, instead of putting all the events on one day, because with that comes health and safety implications and more risk assessments and you know, the need potentially for toilets and things, additional toilets than what are in the park. What we did is we spread out a program over a few weeks. So there might be a few events on a weekend, there might be events on weeknights. And as I said, I think over 30 facilitators volunteered sessions. So we had things like basketball, yoga, dance, forest school, writing, loads and loads of different things. And that first year we were thrilled because Green Flag announced a new award, which was basically in the best of the best awards. Is they came up with the best initiative to engage and increase the use of parks by women and girls, which I think is such a valuable category. And we were so fortunate because we won that award that year because of the Make Space Festival. So we're very proud of that. So since then, the Make Space Festival has evolved. I have looked for funding because my belief is, if you've got facilitators with skills running stuff, that I should try and pay them. And obviously there is more money involved when you're producing posters and various things like that. So I have been looking for funding, and I've been fortunate to manage to get patchwork grants each year so far. The problem with funding like that is often you don't get a funder who will fund continuous years, so you're always looking for funding. But we've managed to continue. So 4 years, in our 4th year now, and the feedback has been amazing. I am so thrilled by the feedback. One of the biggest achievements in that first year was basketball, actually. As mentioned, our basketball area was dominated by boys. We had a local basketball group, who had 1 girls team. And after doing the events in the park, they went on to have 3 girls team. And actually seeing girls in the basketball court in the evenings now is more common than it used to be. And that's brilliant. So we've had some amazing positive feedback, and we keep going. So the second area that came from what the girls wanted is to co-create an area in the park with equipment that they wanted. Now, we spent time through engagement sessions finding out about what they enjoy and don't enjoy in the park, what equipment meets their interests. It was also important, the girls were very clear on where equipment should be in the location, and we talked about other changes that they would want in the physical space. But the biggest question is how to fund and how to make this happen. So luckily, due to managing to find a patchwork of grants, we managed to get enough money to install initially just 3 pieces of equipment, which might not seem a lot, but the message was clear and the community pride has been clear. So we managed to get a basket swing, what the girls call a climby, loggy, stacky thing, where you can climb, balance, sit, perch, chat, picnic benches, log seating, adding some wildflowers and clear signage, basically saying that this is an area that has been co-created with girls. Now, the community pride and the messaging in this has been so important, and this is placed not far from the other 2 play parks. We have 2 mini play parks for smaller children, but it's further enough back to be a space where teenagers can be. And what is lovely is during the day, I see adults in the basket swing too, and they probably wouldn't go into the real play area, but it's like an open invitation to sort of play. And there's a lot of sort of love and pride over this equipment. And what I'm really excited about, and this starts tomorrow, is we've managed to get some more funding via 2 grant funders to add to this area. So we're getting a bigger climby, loggy, stacky thing. We're getting some roll bars or bars that you can sit on, but also some permanent hammocks as well. So the area is expanding, and it is just an area where older children can feel welcome. So in addition to the equipment, we've also looked at the park in conjunction with the council and using our volunteers who do a lot of gardening too. And we've done things like cut the hedges back, make sure all the gates are open. For example, our skate park and basketball park are in old tennis courts, so they're caged and they can feel quite entrapped. So making sure both gates are open can make a huge difference to how safe people feel inside. Improved signage throughout the park, trying to look at the toilets to make them a bit better. And I'll come to this in a bit, but also skate park improvements that are actually going to be happening in the next few months too. So how have we managed to make this happen? Because I'm talking as an individual who's led a project with the Friends of Rowntree Park sort of support and the community support. So it's been working in partnership with the council and other park stakeholders. You know, the council might say, we haven't got money, we can't afford this, but they have been there when I say, this is what I want to do, can we do this, is this possible? And you know, you get support in that way. Being a park that floods, we have to make sure our equipment is of a higher standard with steel feeting. So I talked to the council about quality, and the idea is that if we get the funding for the equipment, we've got an agreement that the council will maintain it if it is the right standard and done to the right sort of specification. We've also partnership with other organisations and individuals, you know, been to lots of sort of guiding and scouts groups, works with schools. It's also about looking for funders continuously. So you can see some of the funders that are on the side that we've managed to get involved over the last few years. What's been important is getting the whole community on board to understand what we're doing and why. And it's about informing people throughout, you know, making sure the narrative's right, sharing the story, the successes, what's been achieved and why. But it's also been driven by data and evidence, that engagement, that quantitative and qualitative data that I've been constantly getting from the girls throughout. And what's been important is to be pragmatic, to take small steps, not to make all the changes at once and see it overwhelming, and to basically then sit back and measure those changes and see if they are making a difference and what else could be done. So what we've got is the events and spaces together have created the sense of belonging. It's been about trying to bring girls back into the park or stop that drop off of park use as they're entering their teenage years. So we've co-created an area. We've got workshops and events. So it's not just the festival. We have events throughout the year. We have posters in the park that say what we're doing and why. We have a weekly evening hangout group in the woodland, which is for teenage girls, where they hang in hammocks, do campfire cooking and nature crafts. And we constantly celebrate the stories. And a really good example here is just a picture I was sent when the basket swing was put in. And it was like a parent saying they thought the days of pushing their not so little children were over, but they spent like a beautiful half an hour chatting and swinging, which I think was lovely. So as I mentioned, in the evenings, weekly, we have a group in the woodland called the Wild Ones, and it's all to do with getting girls together. It's the same group over a half-term block, and they shape the program, but it's about feeling safe, connected to the space and connected to nature. We've run things like the Seen and Heard photography project, where girls' stark portraits are displayed in the park with their views of their experiences of the park, because I think that's so much more important than me telling adults what I think. You've got the girls' photos and got their views, and you can't basically arguing with that. So a good example being, I like climbing stuff in parks, including trees. There isn't enough climbing stuff for our age. And I like the new area teenage girls helped create in my park with the basket swing, log structure and seats. It's a social space where there are less people and you can just hang out. And we've also done things like photography exhibitions and displays to celebrate teenage play, to show people that teenage plays matter. So just basically joyous photos of girls in the park having fun. And creative workshops continue. As I've mentioned, we've done all different types of things. We've, again, thanks to some funding, we've got creative workshops being offered for free throughout the summer as well. And it's a way to continue engaging and creating belonging and creating that sense of space, and also empowering them to know that their views completely can make a difference. And so lastly, the sort of thing we've done has been raising awareness and getting change. So I spend as much time getting the girls on the radio or myself on the radio, speaking at events. We've run exhibitions, done speaking engagements. I was fortunate to be involved in the Safer Parks conference in 2023 because Rowntree Park was a case study in it. It's just constantly raising awareness of what we're doing and why it matters. So again, the engagement is ongoing. So this is from just a few weeks ago, just a quick little video with our local girls.
The places I don't like in parks are mainly the small playgrounds where they're mainly for the little kids, or the skate parks where I don't really feel welcome. Those are the places I don't like because I feel like I'm intruding and I shouldn't be there.
The skate park, I don't go there just because like there's always like a bunch of teenage boys, and like yeah.
So the bits I don't use are the like sport areas. Things that I don't like about parks are like these skate park areas where like all the teenage boys hang out, and like the areas where the little kids and their parents hang out. I just feel unwelcome there.
I don't go into the skate park because there's normally like big groups of teenage boys, and they're all like smoking or vaping and like swearing and being loud and quite annoying. I don't like the skate parks and the basketball courts because there's normally like big groups of boys there, so you don't really feel like you want to go there. The bits I like about the park are like when I go on the swings, because then me and my friends can just walk there. But when we're like at the little kids park, we kind of have to let the little kids on. But I really enjoy going on the swings.
I really like the swings. That's great. Or so the hammock. I enjoy all the swings. That's really good, and I like how we've got a new one for all of the girls. I also think it'd be good if we had a few more benches around this area, because then if you only have one, it's like one group, whereas quite a few people come over here. So yeah.
And I also like really enjoy the climbing stuff. I think that's like just really fun. So it's not like we're messing around, but we're still like climbing and using our bodies.
The things I enjoy in the park are things that you can sit and like talk to your friends, like swings or benches. I enjoy them. And things I'd like to see more of, more things to swing on, but also so you can also chat to your friends while you're swinging on it.
So it's really useful to find out what girls are currently thinking and what they're enjoying, and we've used that to build on things. So the impact and change has been increased park use by girls. Ultimately, over the few years, we've had over 500 girls involved across York, not just in our local park. So much positive feedback. And it's also community pride and influencing. So I'm actually been working with other local friends groups to start like doing similar research with them to help them find out the views on girls, and also influencing the council. So, you know, I've worked with the council, I've been looking at sort of recreation spaces, and we've done sort of engagement together and go into schools and do sort of workshops to find out the views of groups that are being missed. So what's worked well with this project is letting the project evolve, a range of ways to engage, listening, giving the girls leadership and ownership, celebrating the joy and all the possibility and visibility and communication all the way through. Some of the engagement methods we've used are here. There's probably more: surveys, focus groups, creative workshops, public speaking, observations, constant feedback, and it's ongoing. But as you heard from those girls, a lot of them still won't go near the skate park, and there are some who will, but there's not much we can do massively about that. But we can look at the existing space and think, can we do any improvements? And as I've mentioned, is not all girls will want to skate, but we need to make the space feel inclusive for those who potentially do. And we've done some feedback with local skaters, families, and the girls about what we could do to our skate park. It is a small enclosed space and there isn't much room, but we've looked at the idea that we could take down one of the sort of cage panels, and there's a bit of green space behind it. So we're going to take down that panel. We're going to pave the green space a little bit, not all of it, and we're going to add some benches and some picnic benches, because it'll do two things. It'll make the space feel less enclosed, and hopefully it'll make it feel more inclusive and people can sit and watch before they get confidence. And I'm really fortunate that I finally managed to find a local woman who has some skate skills, and she's going to volunteer to run some sessions. So we're looking at what we could do there, but the idea is we're just trying to look at our spaces and what we can do. So if you were thinking about replicating a similar model, it's important to start small and listen, to design with the girls and not for them. Belonging matters as much as infrastructure. Feedback all the way along, give them ownership, work with partners, constantly evidence the impact, rethink how we design or think about parks, or even the play equipment we have or where we put it, and constantly celebrate and be visible throughout. The challenges for us, because we you know, I'm a small organization linked to a friends group, is obviously funding limitations, trying to find the money. Sustainability of a project, because you're relying on a passionate leader or volunteers to help on this. And actually, there are limited equipment options out there. In reality, we want designers to start listening to teenage girls and coming up with ideas of new equipment, not just the existing catalogues of play equipment that we currently have. We have to avoid assuming what teenagers or girls want. Tokenism, just putting something in because that'll please the girls. You can't parachute solutions in from elsewhere, because you have to talk to your local girls, because even across York, what the local girls want in a different park is different from what they want in my park. And we can't forget intersectionality, because that matters. So with your park, maybe notice if there is a problem, listen to teenage girls and engage in ways that work for them. And remember, they won't be in parks, so you've got to not just listen to the people in the parks, you've got to find ways to get the views of those not in parks. And if there is an issue, take action. There are some general things teenage girls say that they want: a space where they know that they can be. They like nature, lighting, to be kids without being little kids, swings, being up high, seating, shelters. Toilets are important, and clean and safe feeling toilets. Zones is an important one. It was mentioned in that video. They like the idea of stuff being spread out. So if a dominant group takes over, there's somewhere else to sort of play. So you don't have to think about putting everything in one play area. And across the UK, there are a couple of examples happening elsewhere as well. So in Brickfield Park in Bath, the Your Parks B&B did some engagement with girls, and it led to the communal swings. You can see some roll bars and some seating. And in Essex, Make Space for Girls, the charity, have been working with Essex Council, Chelmsford Council, and they've done various things like creating sort of seating and nature planting. So there is change happening in the UK, and hopefully these show it's just small changes, but small changes that can make a huge difference. And the dream would be more play manufacturers to be creating equipment that girls want. And this is one of the examples that we have come across from in sort of Canada. The idea that by talking to girls, these people came up with the idea of a climbing sitting sort of structure that was put in a parklet. And I love this because it is a design that responded to what girls wanted. So to finish off, it's not just about parks, it's about teenage girls' rights to exist in public spaces. So I hope that's been of use. So as I mentioned, I have created a little guide which sort of bottles some of that and hopefully gives some useful, practical advice. And that is actually available on the Green Flag Resources Hub as well, if you want to have a look and download. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Abigail. That was really insightful. And yeah, it's great to see what you've implemented in the park and what's been working. So yeah, thank you so much for the amazing presentation and all your insights. As you said, that resource is on the Green Flag Award hub. It's on the resources hub within, there's a type which says Safer Parks for Women and Girls. So that has your resource, Where Are the Women and Girls, and also another resource, Creating Welcoming Parks for Girls, and then also the other source you referenced, which was Safer Parks, Improving Access for Women and Girls. So loads on there if people want to read up more on that. But yeah, if we now have time for some Q&A. So in the chat function, if people are interested or have questions, please feel free to post something in there. We have one already, which says they have explored the idea of hammocks in parks, but they would need to be put out and taken in. Has anyone got any suggestions or supplies, as they could not be left out? Sorry, I'm coughing, but yes, Abigail, take over.
I mean, we do put temporary hammocks out when we're running groups and there, but in our new design that we're getting with the new equipment, these are permanent hammocks, so it's kind of a rope netting, so it's actually play equipment that stays out and is all weather. So obviously it costs more than putting temporary hammocks out, but they are fully health and safety, like appliant. They are play equipment, so that's what we're looking at.
Or would you like to?
Yes, someone's mentioned there as well. They have a rope hammock included. So yeah, there are play manufacturers who do hammocks that you can just leave out and have our play equipment.
Yeah, Olivia, I was just going to pop it, just drop in, and just say we saw some really good examples when we were in the UAE, when we were out there judging of permanent hammocks that are left out in groups. Particularly popular with teenage girls who sit and meet on them, but also with women with babies and young children who use them during the daytime. So I've got some photographs of those, which I'll send to you, Olivia, and maybe perhaps you could send those around, and I could always check where they're supplied from.
Yes, I definitely can do that. Someone else has suggested having a shelter where the hammock can be included. Then we've got another question. So are you working with any stewardship bodies at the moment? For example, community stewardship solutions. Going forward, they may be taking on the maintenance of green spaces. Oh, I think that was maybe to the previous question. So what else have we got? Appreciate we should be asking girls and young women what they would like, but when we are seeking new play areas and new developments and don't have the community to ask, we can take some key messages from Abigail, Abigail has found, e.g. swings, climbing, seating, for example. Yes, we should be using that going forward. That's a good point.
What you can do though, if for example, housing developers, that there are going to be nearby schools, and that's one of the things that I've very much done, is going in, establishing the links with the schools. And for example, in a local school, we actually got a whole year group, boys and girls, to do a survey. So we got 300 children feedback, and that was for a housing development that was being developed, and that was part of the recreation space. So they fed back, and there was also some drop-in sessions, and we worked with local guides and scouts as well. So there might have not been the full community there yet, but there is a community in the area generally. And as you can still take the general principles and ideas as well.
We've also got, there's a link on the chat if someone's interested in a hammock shelter supply from Compan, if anyone wants to have a look. Another question is, Landscape architects are involved in the design of parks. Has there been or are there any plans to involve or work with or share the resources with the Landscape Institute?
Well, that's a bigger question. I'm just a local project to a certain extent, you know, but what you've got, as I mentioned, is the national charity Make Space for Girls are trying to sort of compile resources together and good case studies to try and influence. But as a lot of information being shared in landscape architects magazines and reports, but this is really a growing area, and the aim is that we need passionate people to sort of run with it and share it and become the champions in their area. So be it the landscape architects, the housing developers, the planners, elected members of councils with parks under the remit, council officers, community groups. The change can only happen by groups of people coming together and sort of communicating with each other for best practice, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. All this resource, for example, and there are so many that you've shared with us that are freely accessible. So it's very easy, I guess, for people to have a look. They're on, again, the Academy website. So if people on the call feel like this is a resource that would be really useful to people that they work with, please share it, because it's the best way, I guess, of the resource and the results to kind of spread and these kind of implementations to be made. But yeah, we've got some people commending you, Abigail. Lots of people saying well done on the amazing presentation and saying that you're right. You need to talk to the communities and consult them, and there are people that you can always ask. I'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if there are any more questions that come through. In the meantime, just before, we got another one. Could you run through the engagement activities you conducted again with a brief description of what they are?
Yeah, if I can remember without looking. I mean, initially, as I said, I started with generally raising awareness in the local area and the community and posters in the park, blogs on our Friends of Park website about the research. But then the engagement really started by two things: having an online survey and sharing that in the Friends of Park newsletter, posters in the park, sending it to school newsletters, to guiding groups, to scout groups, and just any youth organisation that was out there, really. So we had the quantitative data that came in from the simple survey. And then secondly, we started running some focus groups. So, you know, we had a whole session just it started with 10 girls coming to a session because they wanted to feedback their views on the park. What was involved in those sessions, my aim is to try and create some more resources. So you might have seen in that presentation, I've actually recently created some card packs for engagement, and my own 15-year-old daughters illustrated them as well. And so I took them to a local guides group recently where we use them for points of discussion. So the in-person engagement sessions really differ depending on what. So you can get the sort of basic engagement where you might go around the park taking photos of areas you use and don't use in groups, and then it's about a discussion on why. Sometimes you red flag them and green flag them. There's a lot of discussion, but it's got to be sort of structured. We've done like things like mood boarding, as loads of different stuff we've done. But then on top of that, as I mentioned, we've used lots of creative ways. So zine making, where you just start with a whole discussion of what a zine is, discussion of parks and views and public spaces, and the girls just get on with it. And that's quite interesting when it's an art-based thing, because they will do more than they would tell you in person. They show it through their artwork or their written works, their personal thoughts and feelings. So we've done things like zines, film making, poster making, manifesto making. But again, they need planning and organisation to make these sessions work, and for the girls to get something out of them as well as getting information back. But the most important thing about the engagement has also been showing them that it matters, and that makes girls come and book on to more workshops and more things. So, for example, throughout the summer, we've got workshops that will include, we're doing some collective art that is going to feed back on girls, like it's called Hopes Blooms, and it's on their hopes and dreams for parks and public spaces, and it'll be like a visual display. We're doing collective mapping, our views on parks. We've done audio recordings, we've made videos that we share. There's lots of different ways, but as I said, my dream, following on from that guide, is to try and create a toolkit which may have some practical sort of resources and examples of ways of engaging. And it won't be a one size fits all, but for anyone interested in engagement, it's like use all the resources out there on youth engagement, maybe use this too and come up with your own would be my solution.
Thank you. And then someone's interested in if any older girls were interviewed and if they then went on to volunteer in your park or in the environmental sector, if you know.
Yeah, so obviously I've been doing it since 2021. So some of those girls who you started with who were 13, are now a lot older and they're still involved, they're still feeding back, and they might not, the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds might not be getting involved in the events as such, the festival, but they came and volunteered. So they were running like badge making workshops, tote bag making workshops. They volunteer their time. So they're brilliant role models to show the younger girls of what. And sometimes some of the research, I focus mainly on like the secondary school age, but sometimes I'll go to sort of age 10 as well, because it's interesting to get the girls before they stop using the parks and try and bottle what keeps them interested and keep that sort of that interest and that enthusiasm so they don't sort of drop off. So different things that we do are sort of linked to different girls. And I've had loads of university students who get involved in the project as well, be it writing stories for the University Press or coming down and helping at the events. And I've got one who's going to come and help me with some further research to see what happens with the skate park improvements or the new play park, the new girls space play park improvements. So it's ongoing and I'm trying to work with as many people and girls in the community as we can.
Amazing. And then another question is about in terms of making spaces more inclusive, are there any examples of this research extending to LGBTQIA plus youth, as far as you know?
Yeah, at the minute, no, but that's the next sort of bit. Someone was in contact with me the other week who was creating a toolkit for exactly that, but it wasn't just parks, it was parks and public spaces, because many of the things that affect teenage girls affect other sort of minority groups as well, and there's lots of similar experiences. So, the thing is, you could argue that us people at the minute looking at teenage girls, yes, there's much more to look at, but we're doing what we can at the minute on this topic. And yes, we want other people to get involved and lead on other areas and other groups who are currently not utilising parks as much as they can. So hopefully this is like this sort of movement is a whole kick-starting all these other areas to look at all these other groups that aren't using parks and could be, and what we can do to make the parks more inclusive.
And then I think we have potentially our final question. We've got lots of great comments. But it's about someone, they're asking about how you want to ask which communities you reach out to and how you found these, which I think you may have covered, but maybe you feel like you haven't. And then also, how did you share that you wanted to interview the youth groups, as this would be this person's next step? They're doing a similar project in Manchester at the moment.
How did I reach out? I don't know. I just try everything. So as I mentioned, our Friends of Park group, we've got quite a lot of supporters already. We've built up a good following. We have members. So we have 1,300 people on our mailing list as it is. Okay, so that's a good starting point. We are a park. We put posters in the park. So we already had sort of good community links. I've got to admit, I'm a local school governor. I've got teenage kids. I contacted schools. And I've been in to speak to my local school's feminist society, their enrichment clubs. It's just basically throwing it out there. I've been to 3 guiding groups. It's like and done engagement with them. It's just contacting anyone who is linked to youth, and it's reaching out and seeing if they're interested. But you have to have a plan. You have to come with them and saying, this is what I want to do and why, and these are the reasons. And you'll find there's loads of people like Girl Guiding, and they're like, yeah, come in, run a session. It's brilliant. And then loads of the girls from that session then came to the festival. So it's just really spreading the word and just reaching out to anyone. And what was the second bit of that question? Sorry.
It was about how did you share that you wanted to interview youth groups? So I guess that's all to do with maybe permission, maybe.
Yeah. How did it? What permission? What do you mean? Sorry.
Well, no, it just says, how did you share that you wanted to interview youth groups?
Just all those things I've said, just basically reaching out to all community organisations. Obviously, when I'm filming girls and whatever, I have to go through all the safeguarding, get permissions and agreement to be on social media, and so it's just like it's just looking at what you can physically do and doing those small steps, but just reaching out to any related groups in the community is a starting point, and it's just grown from there.
Nice. Okay, well, I think those are all of our questions, and I think also we're running out of time. But thank you so much, Abigail. That was an amazing presentation, and thank you for answering all the Q&As. There were a lot. So but yeah, I think everyone seems to have taken a lot away from the session, and has inspired people to implement, like reaching out to organizations, implementing some things you suggested. This session will be recorded. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see my slideshow? Hopefully you can in a second. But yes, this will be on the Academy website soon, hopefully by the end of the week. And then I'm trying to share my screen. It's not working. I'll do this. These are our contact details for the Academy. Either you can email us, or this is our Academy email address, mine and Michelle's email address. So if there is something that you would like to see us run a session on, please feel free to reach out. If you have a resource that you think would be valuable on the Resource Hub, please let us know. And if there's anything you need help with, maybe within your park or green space, also reach out to us and we can try and help you. And yeah, thank you so much again, Abigail, and thank you for everyone who attended, and we hope you enjoyed. Hopefully see you at a session soon, and have a lovely day.